Right, editor, it's my first proper video. I'm a personal finance channel, and the audience haven't really got any idea what to expect. So I'm thinking we just do what everyone else does and just put pictures of Lamborghinis absolutely everywhere. So I want like a Lamborghini here, one over there, and you know what? Just cover my entire face with that Lamborghini that Akon talked about in that video back in 2005. And then I'm going to tell the audience all they need to do to be rich is work hard. Hello everyone, welcome back to Munch and Money. I'm Joel, this is Munch. Today we're going to have a look at why different generations have different approaches towards money. And we're also going to look at how you can develop a positive money mentality. Let's go. I know everyone wants to jump in with the big topics like how do I invest 10k to become a millionaire and what do I do with my money, how do I invest it? Well, I understand that, I get it. Everyone wants to be a millionaire, everyone wants easy money. Okay, right, yeah, I get it. But what we really need to do first is build our foundations a little bit. So we need to look at our mentality towards money and understand what it actually is. Because if you don't have the right mentality towards money, I can absolutely guarantee you're going to be doing things wrong. So what we're going to do is break down some of the different mentalities that different age groups might have. And then I want to go through some specific examples. Some of them are going to be good and some of them are going to be bad. And I want you to think, have I heard of any of these before? First up, we've got the boomers, and I'm going to classify boomers as anyone around the age of 70 or so or older. You know, the type of people that sit around your dining table and say, back in my day, or the type of people that think you can just buy a house at like 19 or minimum wage because why not? Yeah, just buy one or two. So jokes aside, people are way too harsh on the boomers. Yes, a lot of their ideologies when it comes to money may be a little bit outdated, and no, they may not apply to our current economic conditions. But we've got to remember that the literal king of investing, the man that's on my wall right there, Warren Buffett, the man who pretty much has an infinite respawn glitch on when it comes to money, is part of this generation. So we can only be so harsh, and we should listen when these older people give us some advice about money, because if it worked for them, it's probably going to work for us. Then we've got Generation X. Editor might have got a little bit confused there. This is Generation X. And by the way, look how diverse that photo is. That's got to be scoring me some points with the YouTube algorithm or something. So if you're around my age, 30-ish, these are going to be our parents, as well as our bosses and our managers at work. And these guys are going to have a very different mentality towards money than the boomers, because during the time when they were growing up, interest rates were sky high. So that's going to incentivize them to lock money away and take less risk because they can get a higher interest rate in a bank account. So they're going to be less incentivized to invest and more likely to be reserved when it comes to their capital and their mindset towards money. Then we got millennials, which is the category that I'm in. And this section is going to be easy because none of us have got any money because we've been screwed over by the older generations, right? Well, that's not necessarily true. Yes, the cost of houses has gone up at a significantly higher rate than real income, which basically means it's really hard for us to buy houses compared to the previous generations, especially the baby boomers. But at the same time, millennials have been blessed with some really good stock market performance, as well as the rise of the internet, making it easier to connect with anyone all over the world and create different side incomes just by sitting in your living room and talking into a camera. And they've also had the rise of cryptocurrency, which we're not going to get into in this video, but it was also an excellent opportunity to create wealth, which other generations didn't have. So I want to dispel the belief that the millennials have been screwed over in some way. You've had just as many opportunities as everybody else to get rich, so stop moaning and get on with it. Then you've got Generation Z or Generation Z if you want to sound American and cool. And I had to be really careful Googling these guys because it includes teenagers and kids.
Check his hard drive.
And to sum this group up, we're just going to say that they're the generation of social media because they never knew what life was like before the internet. And all they're force-fed on social media is consumption. Whenever they look, there's a car, gold chains, cash, all this stuff. So they're going to think that money comes easy, which does have its benefits, but it also has its hindrances, which we're going to talk about later. And I know what you're thinking. Joel, I'm nearly 5 minutes into your video now. I'm still skint. I still don't have a Lamborghini. So what's the point of me even watching and paying attention to whatever you're going to say? And okay, I get that. But the whole point of me poking fun at those generations and giving some of the stereotypes as to what they think and the environments they grew up in is really important when we're building our money mentality, because we have to understand that different ideas manifest themselves in different ways when it comes to money. And some of the lessons that certain generations might have learned and might have embedded into other generations might actually be quite toxic and detriment them from accumulating wealth. So let's take our Generation X friend here. Let's say that they were born in 1970. So the 1970s were an interesting period because the Dow Jones, which is a prominent stock market in the United States, pretty much did nothing for about 10 years. And at that same time, interest rates were really, really high, which meant that you could lock your money in a bank account with virtually no risk and get a really, really nice return. So what type of things do we think that this person would have heard growing up then in the 1970s from their parents? They probably would have heard things like, there's no point investing money in the stock market because it doesn't really go anywhere. You're much better off just leaving it in the bank and letting it gain interest. And that might have been a perfectly good strategy in the 1970s. But because this person's become so dogmatized to that way of thinking, as they get older, say the age of 25 for example, and they've actually got their own money to invest, they're never going to think any differently. And because of that, this person would have missed out on one of the best bull runs in human history. And different associations with money aren't just generational, they're also passed down through different social classes. For example, if you're from a poorer family, you're probably going to know less about money and how everything works and how the stock market works compared to a rich family. And that's how we see the gap between the rich and the poor really grow, because rich people learn lessons about money when they're young, whereas poor people really don't. But I do have some good news, and that's that according to my friend Morgan, none of you are crazy. Regardless of your background, regardless of the things that you might think about money, whether they're subconscious or not, you are going to be able to develop a positive mental attitude towards money. And throughout the next section, I want you to really take a step back and think, have I heard any of these before, or am I doing this? Is this affecting me? Because the more that we can pick up those positive associations with money, the easier it's going to become to develop a really strong mental mindset so we can accumulate wealth. But first, we're going to need a munch break.
Here? Oh, good boy. Oh, what a good boy.
First up in our positive associations is this idea of having an abundance mentality. Because ultimately, money is not a zero-sum game. Just because one person's rich and wealthy or has a lot of assets and income, in almost all cases, it doesn't limit another person also being able to achieve the same thing. There's pretty much an unlimited amount of money in the world, and there's no reason why you can't accumulate wealth. And I think that that's a mentality that everybody should adopt. Next up is something which we've already spoken about briefly earlier in the video. It's the idea of having an adaptable and flexible mentality towards money. And the reason for this is because there's plenty of time in life to treat yourself. As long as you follow a rough budget and you don't overexpose yourself, that's absolutely fine. But there's also going to be times where we need to switch things up a little bit, and the better strategy might be to invest money or to lock that money away in a high interest account if the economy is a little bit scary. But what's important is that we remain flexible and that we are willing to change, because having a rigid mentality can really hinder your ability to generate wealth. And whilst we're talking about money mentality, it would be rude not to mention Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This is the idea of visualizing success and just having a general overall positive mentality towards achieving your goals. I'm not going to deep dive it. I think everybody should read this book. So go and buy it for $5 on Amazon and give it a read. Next up is delaying gratification, or generally thinking more long term when it comes to your goals and what you want to achieve. And I see this a lot, especially with younger people. It's the idea that I can't afford it now, but I can finance it and have it now. That's not really how things work. It's going to take you a long time to achieve some of your goals, especially if those goals are ambitious. And having a get-rich-quick mentality is not going to get you any closer. It's just going to make you feel negative and down when you start comparing yourself to all of the people that you see online. So having that long-term mentality and maybe delaying things until you are in a better position is probably going to lead to better results. First and most major negative association which some people might have with money is this idea that it's somehow evil. So we've probably all heard the saying that money is the root of all evil, and whilst I do sort of get where that comes from, I do think it's a little bit ridiculous, because we should see money as a vehicle towards our freedoms. It gives us the freedom to do the things that we want to do, whether that be give generously to a cause that we believe in, or better the lives of ourselves and the people around us. So this idea that it's evil is going to become really, really toxic, because it's going to limit our beliefs and it's going to limit the amount that we can accumulate, which could ultimately be used for a good. The next is a more interesting one, and it's this idea of hustle culture, which seems to have just taken over social media over the last few years. The general belief that you can just work for 24 hours a day and that you'll just have loads of money coming in and you're going to be ultra successful. And whilst there is a positive correlation between working hard and generating wealth, You really don't have to do this in order to be successful. You can work at a perfectly moderate rate and still become quite successful in life. This idea that you have to sacrifice absolutely everything to save and invest and spend all of your time looking at the markets, it simply isn't true. There's definitely a balance to things, and I think hustle culture is just something that shouldn't really be entertained. On the opposite hand to hustle culture, we have the idea that I don't have time to learn how to invest or that it's too complicated. And whilst I definitely don't think you should be working 24/7 to try and accumulate wealth and that you should obsess over it, I do think that you should put some effort in to better yourself from a financial point of view. Because ultimately people are going to work for 40, 50 hours a week doing really difficult jobs to try and get by. So if you can just offset that a little bit with some financial education to invest and earn a little bit on the side, I think that that should be part of everyone's kind of goals to achieve, if and where possible. Last up is another really popular one. It's that money can't buy happiness. And I totally agree with this. Look, if money is the only thing that you're working towards and the only thing that you have in your life, you are not going to live a happy life. On the other hand, I do think that this statement is a negative because it does kind of discourage us from pushing towards a good money mentality. And there is no doubt that having money, as well as a balance of other different things, can give you a happier, more fulfilling life. So that's why it goes in the negative section. So how do we go about putting these ideas into action? Well, the next time you think something like, I'll never be able to afford it, I won't be able to achieve it, I just can't do it, I want you to take a step back and reframe the idea. I want you to think, how can I achieve this? How can I afford this? How can I put together a measured plan of action to get one step closer to my goal on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Because if we start doing that, if we build the foundations in a positive manner, your goals are going to become a lot more achievable and you're going to be on the right track to building that positive money mentality so you can achieve anything that you want to. So now that we're thinking in the right way about money, in the next video we can move on to how to get more of it. Make sure that you like, comment and subscribe, and thanks again for watching Munch and Money. Take care.